Good Monday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. Now let's get to your headlines. New today, a man accused of stabbing the mother of his child to death in St. Paul faces a judge for the first time. Joseph Davis is charged with second-degree murder after a woman was found dead in a home in the North Frogtown neighborhood last week. According to court documents, police were called to the home for a welfare check by a family member of Davis. Arriving officers found an uninjured 2-year-old girl in the home, along with the body of her mother. Court documents also show that Davis had been convicted several times of assaulting the woman who was found dead in the home. Right now, 2 people are fighting for their lives after a shooting at a Robbinsdale city park. According to Robbinsdale police, officers arrived to a very chaotic scene at Sanborn Park around 9:20 Sunday night. Officers say they found a 19-year-old woman who'd been shot in the head. She was rushed to the hospital, where at last check she was listed in grave condition. Then, just after 10, a man showed up to Methodist Hospital with a gunshot wound and said it happened at Robbinsdale Park. Right now, no arrests have been made. New tonight, the Rochester Police Department says it has finished its investigation into a viral video of a woman calling a black child and a man a racial slur multiple times at a park in the city. That investigation's now been turned over to the city attorney. Meantime, we're hearing from the man who recorded that video. Sharmake Omar says he started recording because he thought it was the right thing to do.
If it was my child, I would want somebody else to stand up for him. I thought she was going to deny it and walk away. When there was a video and she saw that I was recording, she doubled down and even tripled down now.
The woman involved has identified herself online on a crowdfunding website, which has raised more than $650,000 for her, with the goal of $1 million. She says she needs the money to protect her family. Later this week, the Rochester NAACP says they will share an official statement from the family of the boy who was the target of the slurs at a town hall. Right now, the suspect in last week's deadly mass shooting in Minneapolis is in court. Police say James Ortley shot and killed 4 people and injured another late last Tuesday night in the Phillips neighborhood. He is charged with several counts of murder. According to the criminal complaint, Ortley was a close family friend with the 5 people he allegedly shot and was also a member of the Native Mob street gang. If you're traveling soon, check your flight. Delays and cancellations are happening nationwide after several outages at the Newark Airport in New Jersey, one of the busiest airports in the country. The FAA blaming runway construction, equipment failures, and air traffic controllers walking off the job. Those outages caused United Airlines at Newark to cancel dozens of daily round-trip flights there. United CEOs saying they did not have any other choice to protect their customers. The mess could be a preview of what's to come during the busy summer travel season, according to the Transportation Secretary.
And so what we're seeing here at the Philly TRACON, that actually can be what's going to happen across the country.
All of this happening as the FAA investigates another close call between an Army helicopter and a passenger plane at Reagan National Airport. Video shows the chopper landing where it wasn't supposed to at the Pentagon, forcing 2 passenger jets to avert their landing. In a statement, the Army says the confusion came when a Pentagon air traffic controller told the chopper to, quote, go aground. Taking a look at the markets today as Wall Street and the world react to new auto tariffs from the White House. New 25% tariffs went into effect this weekend on imported car parts. According to the U.S. automotive aftermarket, the U.S. imported more than $197 billion in parts from other countries last year. But the White House says automobilers assembling cars stateside will be reimbursed 3.75% of the manufacturer's retail price for the first year. The president says our trading partners are taking notice and reaching out to work out a deal.
We're negotiating with many countries, but at the end of this, I'll set my own deals because I set the deal. They don't set the deal. I set the deal. They've been ripping us off for years. I set the deal. Sir. Every country, almost without fail, friend and foe, has been ripping us off for years. So we're meeting with almost all of them, including China. And at the end, I'm setting the deal.
Israeli officials said today that Israel has approved plans to capture the entire Gaza Strip and remain in the territory for an unspecified amount of time. The move, if implemented, would vastly expand Israel's operation in the Palestinian territory and likely bring fierce opposition from around the world. According to Israeli officials, the plan has two parts. The first is to defeat Hamas. The second is freeing the remaining hostages believed to be in the Gaza Strip. Only 24 of them are thought to be alive. A takeover of the Strip, according to Israel, would also allow in humanitarian aid. And this would be done in such a way, according to the cabinet plan, that would keep Hamas from trying to take over the aid and using it to sell it to the people or using it for themselves. Now to Rome and the Vatican, where final preparations are underway ahead of the new conclave to elect the new leader of the Catholic Church. The ancient, highly secretive process to choose a new pope begins on Wednesday. Jay Gray joins us now from Vatican City with a closer look at the process and when the men who make that decision.
Well, you can feel it. It's a palpable feeling of excitement, of anticipation ahead of the conclave to elect the next pope. And take a look, adding to all of that excitement, this morning crews put the huge red curtains on the doors on the front of St. Peter's Basilica, the second level there. That balcony is where the Pope will walk out for the first time after being elected, addressing the world as the new leader of the Catholic faith. You know, it's been just over a week since the funeral for Pope Francis, and that time's been filled with meetings, with private discussions, prayer. 133 Catholic cardinals, a vast majority of those, 80%, appointed by Francis. They're going to come together behind the locked doors of the Sistine Chapel Wednesday to elect the new Pope here. If there's any tug of war, if there's any sticking point when it comes to the conclave behind the locked doors of that chapel, it will be over whether the church continues to follow the path established by Pope Francis, or if the conservative faction of the Catholic faith brings the church back toward a more traditional following of the ancient laws of the church. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. What we do know is that we won't know who that leader is. It's a very private process. We won't know until we see white smoke from the Sistine Chapel announcing that there has been a decision. The small chimney that will be used was placed on top of the chapel over the weekend. Of course, again, that smoke will tell us who the new pope is, and it's an ominous task that these cardinals have, choosing someone from within their ranks to lead what is the largest Christian denomination in the world with more than 1.4 billion members. That's the latest from here at the Vatican. I'm Jay Gray, NBC News.
Well, heads up if you recently bought tomatoes on the vine. A brand sold in Wisconsin is being recalled over salmonella concerns. Here's what the packaging looks like. The tomatoes were sold in plastic clamshell cases and had vine-ripe tomatoes labeling. They were sold in stores at the end of April, so if you have them, throw them out. Happening tonight, a big vote in Minnetonka, and it all centers around off-leash dogs allowed in certain areas of the city. For years, dogs have essentially been allowed to roam free, particularly at the popular Purgatory Park. But the city council amended an ordinance last year prohibiting dogs from being off-leash anywhere except in designated areas. Some people we talked to say they hate to lose that open space and oppose being confined to two fenced-in areas the park board is now considering. The council will take up the board's recommendation tonight before the rule change officially happens May 19th. Designated areas will also have to be considered at the city's 4 other parks as part of its larger master plan. Happening right now, public media across the country is scrambling. President Trump just signed an executive order to end federal funding for NPR and PBS, and it wasn't without support. Liberal bias has been the biggest argument against public funding, and it's not a new allegation. But there's also debate over public media's purpose. It's a debate we have seen before, one that Gordon Severson learned a lot more about when he talked to local broadcasting folks.
At Minnesota Public Radio in St. Paul, the headline of President Trump's latest executive order is scrolling across their building, announcing cuts to an organization that normally covers the news, now finds itself in the news.
Disappointed that it's under attack.
NPR President Dushan Drew says federal funding makes up about 5% of their budget, around $7 million a year.
So it's not nice to have kind of money, frankly.
Drew says losing all federal funding would drastically affect their ability to produce quality content and could potentially lead to layoffs.
We don't have a corporate jet we can sell. We don't have a lot of other things beyond the people.
Twin Cities Public Television declined an interview, but did release a statement saying they're closely reviewing the executive order to assess how it will impact their operation.
I'm not surprised.
Jane Kirtley is a media ethics and law professor at the U of M. She says the cuts will have a bigger impact on rural TV and radio stations that rely on federal funding to stay on the air.
It really depends from station to station whether the loss of the CPB funding is going to be catastrophic or not. It's going to have an impact everywhere.
We definitely hope not to lose any employees.
Rural stations like WTIP and Grand Marais have less access to large corporate sponsors and wealthy donors, so the cuts could be devastating.
There's nobody else covering the hospital board or the city meetings or the county meetings. And so without that, the community loses a lot.
Meanwhile, in Washington, the White House argues a lot has changed since the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was established in 1967. The American public now has more options when it comes to news and information, and the government should not have to subsidize news operations to keep them on the air.
It's this uneasy relationship between saying you want to be an independent media company and yet you want to take taxpayers' dollars. And I think a lot of people say, well, then that means that you have obligations.
Now, the CEOs at NPR and PBS both released statements saying they have plans to fight this executive order. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is also arguing the president doesn't have the authority to remove the funding because it was approved by Congress. Stick with us. More news and weather is coming up after the break.